Hello and welcome to the Throughthepain podcast. This is a place for chronic pain and chronic illness warriors to dare, dance, and dream through the pain. And now, here's part 2 of our painful conversation with Elsa Franco.
So I want to rewind because I know we just kind of dove right into the conversation.
I know a lot. That was a lot.
Of what happened, but I want to go back to the day that you found out that you were going to bring a child in the world that would have sickle cell disease. What were you thinking? Can you, reflect on that day? Give us your thoughts and your feelings about finding that out.
Well, so again, I didn't know I had the trait. Certainly didn't know Sean, my son's father, didn't know he had the trait either. So when he was kind of a surprise, actually. So I have an older daughter at the time. So I wanted a son for many years when I was married to my ex-husband, and it just never happened. In God's time, it just never happened. So I'm like, I'm just not meant to have more kids. I was happy with being a mom of one. So she was 16 when I got pregnant with my son. And I say that because I already had a pregnancy. And even in that pregnancy, I was never told that I had the trait, but they didn't test at that time. So, and during the first trimester, can't remember which test that we did. So one of the genetic testing that we did came back that I had trait C. I'm like, okay, I told you, like, I like to research, and sometimes research can take you down rabbit holes. The one thing that I said is like, no, if this is my fate and it's meant to be, I'm just going to take what it is. The doctor suggested that he also go get tested just so we know. And I'm like, again, I told him, and he kind of feels the same way. It's like, well, you know what? I don't want to know. I kind of didn't want to know. So I did as much research as I could about sickle cell. And all I kept finding, because back then there was certainly not a lot of information, was all negative things. There was absolutely no positive. So I decided that I'm not going to go through a pregnancy, because I believe that what you feed yourself, not just food, but through your eyes, what you read, what you hear, all of that has an effect on your entire body. And I was not going to put that stress on my baby. This is a child that I had prayed for more than a decade. So surely I was not going to worry about what could be. I didn't want to worship sickle cell. So we decided what is, and we'll accept it when it comes. I knew that there was a 25% chance if we both had the trait. It was still a 25% chance. So like 25%, yay, that's not bad in comparison to everything. I'm hoping for the 75. So when he was born, he was perfect. I didn't know what sickle cell is supposed to look like, but honestly, we had kind of forgotten about it. Never thought about it after the months went by. We just never thought about it. First day, a week, we're in the hospital for 4 days, and then we came home a week after he was born to the date. So August 28th, he was born on the 21st. So August 28th, we had an appointment with the pediatrician, our first appointment. And we go, and I'm standing with the baby by the bed, dad's sitting down. He comes in, the very first thing he says, hello. And I had met this pediatrician at the hospital. That's how I picked him. Our souls I just liked him. I don't know what it was. I just liked this guy. I didn't know his sickle cell background at this point. So he comes in, and the first thing he says is, hello, great to see you guys again. Thank you so much so I had asked him if he was accepting new patients. He had told us while we were at the hospital, yay, whatever. He comes in, the very first thing he says, so we just got the result of the newborn screening, and your son has sickle cell disease. Just like that. So I'm sitting there. All I heard was death sentence. And I'm telling myself, don't cry. Elsa, don't cry. Elsa, don't cry. Elsa, don't cry. Elsa, don't cry. I must have repeated that to myself. He was still talking. I have no clue what he was saying because I just keep telling myself, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. But I heard death sentence, my baby is gonna die. And just floodgates opened. And I was completely undone. Wow, I can actually tell this story without crying now. It took a while to get here. I was completely undone. I don't know. I don't remember anything that he said. But I also had a friend who's a nurse there. We went to high school together. She's a nurse at the practice, and he called her in, and she came in. She gave me the most warmest embrace and kind of calm me down. You know, dad's trying to calm me down, but it's like, okay, she leaves and he says, you know, this isn't as bad as you think. But I will say that the only reason that we're still battling sickle cell is because it's a Black disease. Mind you, he's not a Black person. He's actually an Asian man. Wow. So he gave me, then he said, but I also want you to know that you're in good hands. I know a lot about sickle cell. I actually am doing many studies on sickle cell, and we're going to be okay. Sickle cell is not what it used to be. So he gave me a couple of pamphlets, and we went on our way. I think I was in denial for the first couple of years. Yep, I was in denial. So then it just became, maternity leave was not fun. So then it was just watching the baby, make sure he's breathing, make sure he doesn't have a fever. So it's like you're taking temperature every 2 seconds. If he's crying, is he crying because it's a normal cry, or is he crying because he needs something? Yeah, so the first few months were tough. And then he, you know, because now I'm thinking, you know, here's this guy, at least, you know, I'm grateful that I picked him as a pediatrician. He knows so much about sickle cell. He's doing sickle cell research. So now I'm kind of dependent on or hanging on everything that he tells me. So when he suggested the flu shot, mind you, my daughter has never had a flu shot. I have never had a flu shot in my entire life. And I was a patient at the same practice. And every year my pediatrician would say, get the flu shot. No, thanks. No, thanks. And I've never had the flu, neither did my daughter. The only reason I actually went along and got the flu shot, it was because he suggested it. And then there goes the crisis. So I asked, could that have been why? Oh no, it's normal that, you know, kids that, I'm like, well, he's not a normal child, obviously. So yeah, so it was an interesting, that diagnosis was a very, very interesting journey. He could have used a little bit more bedside manner, especially for someone who knows, but I guess it doesn't, just because you study it or you're trying to patent something that eventually is going to benefit you in the long run. There was a lack of compassion, I feel, in the way that he broke that news, because it was not, as much as sickle cell has changed over the years, I believe that there's still a lot that's not talked about. So doctors don't get the full picture of what the patients actually go through. And I especially learned that in the room, because one, when you're going into the hospital and you're telling these doctors how you feel, a lot of them are dismissing the actual patients, and they're trying to pacify you in some ways, or as I'm learning or have learned, is that some of them make you feel like you're crazy. Like, no, it's not in your head, but oh no, it's in your head. No, that doesn't happen to this person. Or my patient that I had, that doesn't happen to them. But it's like, but wait, sickle cell is like a fingerprint. Every single person, it affects differently, whether it's the same type or even the same person. Every crisis that he's had has looked different. So yeah, the diagnosis was tough. It was very tough, but it was also, again, I'd say it opened my eyes to a world of people suffering that I didn't know was suffering. And that broke my heart. So I think I would say like sickle cell almost touched me so that I can help others.
Mm. That's powerful in and of itself. That's a powerful statement. I want to go back to something that you said that kind of stuck out to me. As a sickle cell warrior, I know what's what pain and how to kind of figure out, oh, that's sickle cell pain, or oh, this is because of this, and I'm able to communicate it. How is it as a mom? Because I always wanted to know this, and how my mother figured it out and how other parents figure it out. How can you kind of tell what's what when you're because our child is limited in their communication skills? How can you tell your child is sick? And even as a baby, and even now, because he's still what, 5?
He's 6 now. He'll be 7 in August.
Yeah.
So in those first few years, it was hard. I was in my head about everything. So temperature and checking his spleen was like a daily thing. So I knew his body inside and out. Like I would study this kid. When I tell you, I became a student of him and a student of sickle cell. I mean, I was a student, like I was checking his eyes, his mouth, like teeth, like, but every day I needed to know what his normal body felt like when he was normal. So that if and when he got sick, what did it feel like and what did it look like? Mm-hmm. And as I mentioned, by the grace of God, one of the number one way that I can always tell is that he stops. He becomes this docile kid whom he is not at all 100% of the time when he's 100%, if that makes sense. But he's also, I think now he knows that his tolerance for pain is different. So if he's not jumping, I'm asking, buddy, what's wrong with your legs? His name is SJ, but I call him buddy, or everybody calls him buddy at home. Because he's my little buddy. He became my little buddy. I know my child. Like the best way that I can say is I know my child. Not only did I incubate this little thing, so I had him over the age of 35. And I'm going to say this because, so I was considered advanced maternal age. So I had, and prior to getting pregnant, the other reason why I never thought I'd get pregnant, I had these fibroids that were like pretty large. And one of the things that my OBGYN had told me, it's like, I hope you don't want any more kids because you got these huge fibroids. So prior to getting pregnant, just before I got pregnant, I was actually supposed to be going to have tests done to get these fibroids removed. So between the fibroids and my advanced maternal age, I had to see a specialist. So I had appointments like almost every week. So I did my regular appointments with the OBGYN, and then I would see the specialist every month for the first 6 months, and then every week in the last trimester. So when I tell you, I knew my kid, like we had regular ultrasounds. I saw his face, like I knew my kid, like not only just inside, but then I saw the sonograms, like, and then when he came out, I was like studying him, like I was a doctor. I just learned, I had to learn to be a student of his body, how soft his stomach was, what he did after he ate, how fast he went to the bathroom after he ate, how he moves in the house. Is he running? Is he not running? And as I mentioned a little while ago, he started to learn his pain tolerance to where sometimes he was still jumping when he was in pain.
Yes.
And you can tell, but you're not jumping the way you used to, but why are you dragging that one leg? And for the most part, his crises have been in his legs. He had the last one he had, the one in May of last year. Or was that the one? Yeah, the one in May of last year, it didn't affect his leg as much, but it's still like it would always be the leg. So I can tell like, wait, you're dragging that leg, or you're not jumping like you usually jump. You're jumping more on your knees. So yeah, I would say getting to know your child. If you know that once you get that diagnosis, study your child. Study every single thing about him, how his eye color changes. But I also did a lot of studying. I went through the rabbit hole of Google and medical records, but I also have cousins who are in the medical field. One's a psychologist and one is a pediatric doctor. So I have access to things that probably most moms didn't. I have access to people and resources that a lot of moms don't. So yeah, I combed through medical research. I combed through everything that I can find on Google. So I knew certain things to look for. So I tried to learn about the eyes, you know, when is it yellowing? Luckily, he's never had jaundice, and I've never noticed yellow eyes. But like, if it were to be yellow, I'm like, ooh, that could be a sickle cell thing. The bilirubin and all of that. So yeah, learn the child, learn about the body systems, how each body part works, and start paying attention to how crisis one. So, and I journal a lot, so I write everything down. For a long time, I was writing down everything that he ate, you know, what he drank that day or how much he drank. And then we introduced him to water very early. So I always made sure that he was hydrated. So if today he's like, okay, well, he's moving a little funny, then I'd backtrack. What did he not do today? Or what is it? So then if all the boxes are checked but he's still not well, it's like, okay, maybe I should call the pediatrician. But for the most part, the fever was always the telling. It's either he wasn't walking or he had an elevated temperature, which would send us to the hospital, and then they would do the blood test and all of that and find out. Luckily, he hasn't had any infections. But I knew because I studied him. Yeah. Like a hawk. I watched him like a hawk. I watched him sleep. I watch how he breathes. I count his breath sometime. I was obsessively, compulsively, I tell you, that's my buddy. Yeah, and I have my own other issues that I thought, which is weird how God works. It's like these things that I would do that people are like, oh, you're weird, ends up being great for my son because my weirdness actually helps him out because like I'm very observant.
And it's just a testament of how good of a mother you are, because there's parents, they're like, okay, you do what you need to do, but you obsessing over him because of his illness, not just because you're just a helicopter parent. I believe you're a helicopter parent too.
I am. I am proudly.
Helicopter parents unite, because I'm one of them. Unite. Yes. But I think it just shows us you doing what you're doing is just a testament of how awesome you are as a mom.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. But
I don't always feel that way, honestly. So it's always good to hear it. And I'm not one that takes compliments well. So I will absolutely thank you for saying that.
Please take it. Please take it. You truly are. And for him to be as happy as he is, and as I've seen him, he's a cutie pie. So to see him happy and is jumping around as he is, especially for a child with sickle cell disease, that is amazing to see him that healthy. You did mention before all the research you did. And you probably didn't know this, but now all the research is compiled into a textbook, which I have here. It's the Sickle Cell Disease textbook.
Is that Hertz artwork?
It has Hertz Nazaire's artwork on the textbook.
Why don't I know about this book?
Well, I'm glad this is going to be, I'm telling everybody now, because a lot of people don't know about it. It's on, you can buy it on Amazon. Just
my list to buy ASAP.
Yes. So if you put in
it's just sickle cell?
Sickle cell disease textbook. It is the most comprehensive and current sickle cell disease resource for clinicians and researchers. I have it for myself. I think all warriors should pick up a copy, and all caregivers should pick up a copy. They're not paying me to say this, by the way. Okay. This is my own personal endorsement. And the reason why I'm choosing to talk about this is because one, it's so important that we know what's going on. And there's a lot of sickle cell warriors that don't even know their genotype.
Yes.
They don't even know, and they don't even know what's happening or the latest research that's happening with their own disease. So it's very important that we just stop, and Google's a lot. Google, we inundate Google, we use Google.
Rabbit hole.
And we're down a rabbit hole and we see all the death, the statistics and the bad statistics and the opinions on top of the research. So they compiled, of course, there were doctors from the University of Pittsburgh.
Nice.
I love Pitt.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's your place.
That's my place. Shout out to the University of Pittsburgh. All this research was compiled from the University of Pittsburgh, the chair of the Department of Medicine and the Division of Hematology Oncology at the University of Pittsburgh.
Nice.
They collaborated and created this book and got all the research together and put it here. And there's hundreds of pages.
That's amazing.
I'm
disappointed with myself.
I'm sorry?
I said, I'm disappointed with myself. I pride myself in knowing, actually, no, I used to think I knew a lot until like I joined the rooms and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to learn still.
I wouldn't down you because your son is just 6.
Yeah.
And all the things I learned along the way as a warrior, it took me a lifetime to learn. And I'm still learning. There's still things that I don't know in sickle cell. So it's okay. We have a lot to learn. Doctors still have a lot to learn. And
I'll suggest one thing too, for parents, don't necessarily go down the regular Google rabbit hole. Go to Google Scholarly, where you get more information and better information, more vetted and more reliable sources. Because a lot of times too, I feel with Google, you get more of
opinion.
A gloom and doom opinionated things.
Absolutely. A lot of bias.
Yeah.
It's associated with the Google rabbit hole. You got to be careful because you can find yourself in a pit of depression after going through that rabbit hole. So I recommend finding vetted research that's that has abstract cited resources.
Yep. Like reliable people that actually went to medical school.
Right.
But that doesn't, just because they went to medical school doesn't mean they know everything either.
Right. So
I had to learn the hard way.
That part.
Girl, the day that I had to school a doctor, it's like, wait, you paid for this education. You should know it's a specialty. You don't have to know about every disease, but particularly if you're in a hospital that treats a lot of sickle cell warrior, you should know at least the basic. When you don't know anything at all.
Let's just remember, this book just came out maybe last year or
so maybe that's why. I'll cut myself some slack on why I don't have it yet.
Exactly. So 2 years ago, but like before this book came out around 2 years ago, right? There were only 2 paragraphs.
Yeah. And then the only other book there was like Hope and Destiny. And
everybody has that too. I have that here somewhere.
Yeah.
Hope and Destiny. That's
the only book that I had found in my prior research. Oh, and my cover is actually white, so they've redone it a couple of times.
They've done it so many times. And then
and mine is white with like the parent and maybe kids. It's been so long since I looked at it. It was a good book, but I didn't feel like it was comprehensive enough.
I think they have a Hope and Destiny, and they have the Hope and Destiny Junior. They have something for teens. They have a teen workbook.
Gotcha.
It was comprehensive to the certain audience.
Gotcha. Okay.
The original Hope and Destiny only went through little lifespan issues, like what to do when you go to camp or like ages like the 6 to 12, the teenage years, what to do with adulthood. And then after the adulthood part, like I'm reading the adulthood part, and it's very slim. There's a lot of research around children and teens, but there's nothing about what to do when you're older, especially for women with sickle cell disease.
Yeah, you guys have to now deal with your cycle. Whatever. You have to deal with cycles. If you want to have kids, mood swings, all the different things that women go through, all the different life things in general, without having the added stress and the added pressures of sickle cell.
Right.
Reproductive systems, like hair.
Right.
Skin. The things that are important to us. Like
and our skin is our biggest organ on our body. And our skin should tell us what's going on with us on the inside. And we're not really paying attention to our skin. There's so many, again, a rabbit hole. There's so many little different nuances within the sickle cell arena that we're not even paying attention to. And then when your son gets older, there's the issue of painful.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Parapism. I can't even say it. Is it parapism? Am I saying it right?
Priapism.
Priapism. Thank you.
Or the fact that he's a Black boy.
Oh my gosh. There's so much. That's another rabbit hole.
Yeah.
There's a mental health aspect.
Oh, my favorite topic.
There's
my favorite topic. And then the opioid crisis that we're facing is just so many things that I had to learn that touched my heart in a way.
So how
it unleashed a beast.
How are you preparing yourself for the future, for his future?
So I'll say this, the one thing that Sean and I decided very early on, we're not raising a kid with sickle cell. We're raising a young man who happens to have sickle cell. Sickle cell doesn't define him, and we're not going to label him. So if it was up to us, I wouldn't have even told the teachers that he had. In fact, I didn't tell the teachers. The nurse just happened to know because I needed her to know if he's not feeling well, what is the issue. So we started him off, school. That was a whole girl. Oh, school. So he lived in a bubble for his first few years, but I also knew that I had to socialize this little kid because he is so intelligent. So we started him in school, but I'm like, but if we send him to a private school, we have a little bit more control, girl. We paid a lot of money for him to get sick. Very first day he went to school, the very first day, September 9th, 2019. He went to school, came back. He was okay, but then he had, that's the day that me and his pediatrician fell out too. Something wasn't right about him. He was walking fine. Everything was good. I think this is remember I told you, it didn't always affect his legs. Sometimes the crisis becomes a lot. You kind of forget where you are and what stage. So his first day of school, he went in, came home. He was a little off. By nightfall, so picked him up. I can tell, he's walking fine. He looks okay. But by the time he it was bedtime, trying to get him down, something's a little off. He falls asleep. I could tell his breathing was labored. I'm like, something ain't right here. So all night, kind of watched him all night, did the temperature. The first thing you do is fill the stomach.
Yep.
Pretty soft, so no spleen, no temperature. But I'm like, this labored breathe, it hadn't gotten quite labored yet, but I can tell he was struggling a little bit.
Right.
So by morning, his breathing became labored. So first thing I did is call the pediatrician. So at this point, it's we don't really need to go to Tufts because it's not any of the things that we would normally do. There's no fever, spleen is good. He's walking fine, everything is good. So call the pediatrician, bring him in. We go in. The first thing he says, so he's been pushing hydroxyurea for some time. I tried it, did my research, wasn't that excited, but again, this is someone that I trust, so he's pushing it. So I'm like, all right, we'll try it. He had back-to-back crisis within a few months. So what's the point of me injecting him? No offense to anyone who takes it, and if you give it to your child, but for me, I'm not going to poison him, meaning that I'm not going to introduce him to anything outside of holistic stuff if it's not going to help. If I know that if you can't guarantee, I mean, I know nothing's guaranteed, but if I'm trying it and I still don't see positive results, why am I going to give it to him for? I noticed his hair wasn't growing. There was just a lot of things, like he just had like, he started to look like a little old man. He's like, his hair was like receding over here, which is where dad recedes. So we walk in and he says, oh, he's having an acute chest syndrome. I'm like, I'm sorry, excuse me? This is all your fault. Oh, we don't want to do that.
Okay.
That we're not going to do. So it's like, instead of trying to help me out, you need to take him to Tufts right now. Okay. And then it started like reprimanding me like I'm a child. Mind you, we're about the same age. Don't talk to me like I'm a child. And one, don't talk to me like a child. Two, I'm here for my child. Let's talk about what's going on with my child. If you want to set up an appointment and we can have it out, let's do that. But don't talk to me like that in front of my kid.
Right.
Do not, because he's 4 years old. He can understand stuff, but you're not going to bully me in front of my kid. But then he also needs to understand that I'm his number one advocate. If I say I don't want him to take something, it doesn't matter what you say. I don't care who you are. You could be the president of the United States. You're not making me. So then he proceeded to tell me that if something happens to him, I hope it lives on your conscience. It's your fault.
Ooh.
And I'm going to report you to the CDC. If you don't start giving him the medication, I'm going to report you to the CDC. Oh, don't threaten me with a good time. Oh, is that what we're talking about? I said, we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to take my son to Tufts and we're going to have a conversation after. So took him to Tufts. He didn't have acute chest syndrome. He happened to catch a virus that attacked his right lung. So that attacked his lung. So he had to do nebulizer treatments for 2 weeks. But then crisis back to back from September to November. He had back to back crisis like almost every 2 weeks. So I said, like, so you think like, hey, it's a private school, they take better care of, or the cleaning or whatever, or the kids, I don't know what I was thinking, but
kids are kids, they're all nasty.
Yeah. So from 2019, really, I felt like I started to get lax, and it's like, well, he just had sickle cell. But, so in terms of all that, yeah, we were very in agreement in terms of raising him like a normal child. We will deal with sickle cell as it comes on. Obviously, he knows he goes through pain, but he doesn't worry about sickle cell, or we're not living that life where we're going to seclude him. And no, they told us we couldn't travel. Guess what we did? He was at 3 months old. We went and got him a passport. We've traveled. We've been to Canada. We've been to Jamaica every year prior to COVID. He's been to a ton of states. I traveled a lot for work whenever I could bring him along. So no, we're not doing that. We are not doing that. We're not living. We were very, very deliberate about not being a statistic, not living in a bubble that you tell us, so this is how his life should be. No, God is the only God that we serve. Everybody, whatever you worry about, that's who you worship. I worry and worship God.
Yes.
So there's nothing, no.
So that story, I wanted to backtrack a little bit because you said a couple of things that kind of had my spidey senses up. You mentioned the doctor telling you that your child had acute chest syndrome when it was actually a lung infection.
Yeah.
Then you also said that he pushed hydroxyurea on you.
Again.
So two things. I want parents to understand, because sometimes these doctors forget that they could be wrong.
Oh yeah.
And this story just highlights how wrong this doctor was. And he may have good intentions. However,
Off.
his spidey senses were off, completely
Way
off,
off.
and did not do the proper tests before making the assumptions or his hypothesis. He needed to have comprehensive testing before making his absurd hypothesis.
Agreed.
Another thing that I want to highlight is the issue of hydroxyurea. And, I know we at the Through the Pain podcast, we're not here to kind of push medication on people.
Or not.
And, I am a heavy proponent to Oxbryta. Oxbryta works for me.
Yeah.
Vitamins and making sure I have a vitamin D. I have a lot of vitamin D and vitamin B12 in my system that works for me. But I'm not trying to downplay a drug or try to talk bad about a drug, but hydroxyurea was not it. And it's not it for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I want doctors to understand, it was not created for us. It was created for cancer patients.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for saying this on my own podcast, but guess what? I don't care.
It's your podcast.
It's my podcast. So it was not created. I want parents to understand. I want warriors to understand. Hydroxyurea was never intended for us. It was not engineered in a lab with sickle cell patients in mind. Mm-hmm. We just were told to take it after a discovery by happenstance, like we're just an afterthought.
A fluke.
It's just a fluke of the reason why we were prescribed hydroxyurea. It does not work for everyone.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, you said your son's hair was falling out. When I was taking it, it totally jacked up my system. I feel it totally jacked up my reproductive health. Mm-hmm. I felt like my hair was, and the thing is, my thing as a woman, my hair is my crown and glory.
Yes.
And I was like, you can tell in pictures, oh, that was a hydroxyurea stage, because I was bald for what I felt was bald for a long time. And I started getting my hair back after locking it and after not taking certain medications, and now my hair's back to where it's supposed to be. But for me, I really want to encourage warriors and warrior caregivers to do their research.
Yeah.
And if they're going to take hydroxyurea, which is pushed upon your medical provider, please make sure you have a journal and write down every symptom, every hair follicle that falls out, every pain, because for me, hydroxyurea does not work. And that's my little soapbox moment. Just be very cognizant. I don't care if it's folic acid or penicillin. And that's the staple of what
penicillin is another one.
Right. And that's what I was told. And my mother was like, penicillin. I had to drink it. It was nasty.
But it's like, for me with penicillin, it's like, eventually don't you think taking antibiotics every day, twice a day for 5 years, you don't become somewhat resistant? So what happens when you really need to? But then when you go to the hospital, the first thing they do is give you an IV penicillin anyway. So it's like, what was the point?
Exactly.
We can go into a whole thing about penicillin. There's things that I refuse. So my best suggestion for any parent is know your child, know that your doctor is not God. Do not let them bully you. And you are your child's biggest advocate. You incubated this thing for 9 months. Trust and believe you know your child better than any doctor or any person who went to school, studied for however many years, got this piece of paper that says, this is not a doctor degree or anything, but got this piece of paper, then now they feel like, oh, I'm better than you, or I know more than you. No, not really. Because honestly, you can put me in a room with a bunch of doctors. I bet you, I would say, they would say, give her a doctorate degree because she knows more about sickle cell than we do. Do your research. It's not, and this is not to down any doctor or say that doctors are useless, but doctors don't know everything about everything. And sickle cell is one of them.
And that paper that they give them when they get their MD degree, it's not a position of God. It's a position of servitude. One, you are to be of service to the practice. You're not trying, you're not God, and you're not over the people that you're trying to help. You are here to help. And people, and I think we kind of
rely too heavily on the medical community. And a lot of them are well-meaning. However, for someone that I only see for 5 minutes at a time every few months, your opinion can't, you can't, sorry.
It's toilet paper to me. Your opinion is toilet paper to me. And you only see your patients and there are times because of the health insurance. And it's like, okay, 5 minutes here, get blood testing here, whatever I see on the computer, check, we're done. I'll see you in 6 months.
Yeah. And there's some great physicians there's some great physicians. Again, I have them in my family. I know people who are physicians, and I've actually in meeting some of the warrior parents in the room, some of them have amazing physicians who are willing to work with them, who are willing to hear them out and like create a great care plan catered to that patient, not a one size fits all prescription for everybody. Well, this is what I gave all my patients, but all your patients are different. We're all different as human beings. And then you add sickle cell to the mix. As we mentioned before, sickle cell is like your fingerprint. Every single person is experienced with it, no matter if you're an SC, SS, beta thal or whatever type you have, you may not find another person that has the exact same thing or whose experience has been exactly as yours. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of the doctors, well, the ones that I've experienced, which is a little sad for us in Massachusetts, considering how great, the amazing schooling that we have and all of that. It's like, but it's sickle cell. Again, it's sickle cell. There's like so much that's lacking. So again, what we're talking about it's not about bashing every doctor. It's more to empower the parents to have a voice. Don't just take what everyone tells you at face value. And I think it's particularly important for people or parents and caregivers or even warriors who English is not their primary language, or the fact that sometimes you feel because you may not be as well versed in with medical terms or what these medicine can do, or you just don't have the access to certain information, you may feel like you have to trust this doctor because he's a doctor. And then in a lot of countries, it's like, well, the more degrees they have or the certain titles gives people certain power. It doesn't. I don't believe that at all. So it's kind of sad because you can see, well, I've seen in my experience, the parents whose English is not their primary language, they're kind of at the mercy of the doctor telling them whatever, and they're just going with whatever because they don't know any better.
Right.
They just don't have access to the information. Sometimes it's as simple as not having access to the internet, or not having access to great pharmacy, or just information in general. Sorry. my alarm. I have an alarm for everything. So yeah, so that's an area that I quickly noticed. So English wasn't my first language. Being Cape Verdean, obviously it affects the Cape Verdean community, which I didn't know. But then it's like Africa. It predominantly affects people of African heritage. So in Africa, it's where it affects most of the people. So once you come here, and a lot of people are coming to seek the medical treatment. So if you're coming here and you don't have the proper someone who's explaining things to you, and there are doctors or people in general who, if you don't speak English as perfectly as they do, it's like, oh, you're a POS, or you're just like you're treated less than. But it's like, no, that's not the case. So that's one of those things one of those areas that like is close to my heart. It's like, you see so many people just going along just to get along, because it's like, well, he's the doctor or she's the doctor. She said this is what it is, and that's what they said, this is the best thing. No, you're still your parent. You're still the parent. You're still, your child better than anyone. And you still have to be the best advocate for that child. And again, we're probably going to say, you're probably going to say this a lot too. It's not to bash anybody, especially in the medical field, but best interest of the people with sickle cell hasn't always been in the forefront of all these medical people. Otherwise, in 2022, we would not be having this conversation.
Exactly.
Otherwise, in 2022, we would not having people die in the hospital. There was 2021, the young man who was it in England?
Yes.
Who actually died because he in the hospital had to call 911 from a hospital bed because he's not getting treatment. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So those are the things that I know, like the question about how I'm thinking about parenting him moving forward. Those are the things that absolutely get under my skin, because there's no way, I don't care how old he turns, as long as I'm alive, he will have Mama Bear. I'm sure he'll be married with his own family someday. And I pray that he finds a great partner who's as cutthroat as I will be when it comes to my child. Look, I saw a meme the other day that says, it wasn't a meme, it was a reel. When it comes to my child, mess with them, I will smile in my mugshot. I will smile in my mugshot. But no, you will not. So, but it's those situations. I'm gonna send it.
That's the sentiment when it comes to my kids. Like,
yeah.
And I think my kids, my oldest is afraid to tell me if somebody messed with him.
Oh, my daughter was like that.
The sentiment, I
will be so zen. And then someone did what to what? They said what? Oh, I will go from 0 to 100 in like seconds flat. I forget about Christianity. I forget about who I am. I forget about who I'm talking to. I'm like, look, me and Jesus, I'm just gonna have to go to the throne after I'm done and like go ask for forgiveness. But yeah, yeah.
It is.
And then my son is also like already so tall to know. So in general, because I am raising a Black man, I think it touched me in a different way. Because so the statistics say at a 5-year-old, for a Black boy, he's automatically viewed as at least 5 to 10 years older than his white counterparts.
Like Emmett Till.
Yeah. So my son is already tall. He's almost like up to my shoulder. I mean, not that I'm that tall. I'm like 5'3", but he's already over 4 feet tall at 6 years old.
Yes.
So one of the things that I know is that when he's 10 or in a few years, when he's 8 to 10 years old, he's going to be looked at as a grown man.
Yes.
And then you know that once you go into a hospital, for men, it's even worse. You're considered a drug seeker.
Mhm.
So if I know my child is suffering and he can't go to the one place that's supposed to help all people,
Mhm.
that boggles my mind, honestly. When I heard that, or when I learned of that, Dima, when I tell you, it made my blood boil.
I just pray to God that they don't kick out your son when he gets older at the hospital, because the hospitals now, especially in the around this area, even on methadone mile. For those of you who don't know, methadone mile is
Talk about it.
it's a location of where meth addicts situate themselves around a certain hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, and we call that strip methadone mile. So back to the point I was trying to make. back to my point I was trying to make. This specific hospital, they kick people out who are and flag them in their chart. And most of them are really sickle cell patients but meanwhile, there's programs for people who are meth addicts to go and get their meth. And it's a form of harm reduction. However, there's no harm reduction in the case of sickle cell disease. I'm just trying to figure out.
It's hard. I said for sickle cell patients, it's more harm infliction.
Yes.
At that point.
So, and there have been cases, my personal friends who have sickle cell disease who are male, I'm not going to say their names, but there are at least 3 of them that I have heard. There's one has passed on. And then there's 2 others that have said that this hospital specifically kicked them out after a painful episode.
That's crazy.
Had them escorted.
That's crazy.
Out of the hospital.
I wish somebody would.
And rest in peace,
somebody would.
Rest in peace to Hertz Nazaire. I don't know if you heard my previous podcast with.
Oh, I did. That was my art. Oh my God.
The man that
told his story.
The man that did this
painting, that day.
The man that did this painting was kicked out of the hospital.
In his boxers.
In the snow.
Yep. In a t-shirt.
Yes.
Like when I tell you, when I heard that story, like I sat here and cried and cried. And every time I heard a similar story in the room, because I saw the podcast more recently, but when he shared his experience, and I know his mom had passed on, so it's like essentially he was kind of navigating this whole thing by himself.
Right.
When I heard his story, it's like, wow, how do you not have compassion for people? Even if you thought they were drug seeking, someone is telling you they're in pain, they can't walk. How are you just so callous? Like, what kind of heart do you have? But we live in a world that animals are treated better than humans. Oh, Lord forbid you kick a puppy. You'll go to jail for kicking a puppy. But you can put somebody out on the street that needs help, a human being. But because the color of their skin, they're not worthy of your care. Like that's yeah. So for me, as you can see, like it just, I'm like all like shaking, like just thinking about it. To think of a world where that's where my son could potentially be. No, that means I'm moving earth and sky now to ensure that when he gets to that place, he doesn't have to suffer. So, but not just him, because there are hundreds of thousands of others that go through the same thing. So while my motivation is my son, I certainly hope that what I want to do will help others, because no one should suffer like that, and especially alone. Like, it's bad enough that you may feel not understood. And then to think that like, oh, wow, you don't even have a parent or a friend that will go and advocate for you.
Mm-mm.
That's hard. That's gonna like zen it out here.
So Elsa, I'm gonna I've been writing notes during our podcast, and I'm gonna have you back on in the future. There's so much more to unpack.
We could talk about this all day.
Talk about this stuff all day. And you have brought a lot to the forefront in terms of sickle cell disease and how we take care of each other, not only ourselves, but each other. So
Yeah.
thank you for all of that. And thank you for what you do. Which brings me to what you're going to do for the community. Can you kind of, let us know how you're going to help in the future and any plans? Can you share that?
Well, one of the first things, my life had felt before my son, I was literally in this tunnel of, I know I'm called to more. I know there should be more that I should be doing with my life, but just didn't know what that was. Like, I can honestly say that for a few years, I was like, I just feel unfulfilled. Had an amazing career in marketing. I worked for a Fortune 500 company for 15 years. So I had a great job, had great friends, had my daughter who's just awesome. But I just had always felt unfulfilled. Then when sickle cell hit, it was just like, oh, so this is life. Okay. But then the more you learn, the more you're like, oh, so this is life. And over the last, I'd say once I started to really get involved in getting to know other people, hearing stories, getting to know you, hearing your story, what you've been through, how you've excelled above all that, because I get cramps. I'm in bed for a couple of days. To hear all that you've accomplished, everything that you've accomplished, and managed to write an amazing book, by the way, and be a beauty queen and just do so many things. It's like, wow, you guys have given me hope. So one of the things that I really feel that is now my life's calling, it's like, I need to be a voice for the voiceless. I need to, so yeah, my son is the reason, but I don't want to live in a world where just my son is healed. I wish that everyone could be healed and everyone can have access to things. So one of the things that I know God has placed in my heart is to start an organization to help others, specifically other mothers and caregivers that don't have access to the information that we were just talking about, or don't have access to people, don't have access to treatment. So all of that's in the work. And I see a world where unless you absolutely need to go to a hospital, why can't the treatment come to you at home? I see a world where you're not looked at as a drug seeker, but you know what, but even that, let's back up on the drug seeking thing. But you are seeking drugs, you're in pain, you need help. So yeah, you're just not seeking drugs for the reasons that people think you're seeking drugs, but absolutely, I need help. And if drugs is what is going to help, but I also hope that that comes a point where we don't have to rely just on drugs, but then there's just so many other ways that you guys can be supported. So I have a podcast coming out soon, which is called Hope in Infliction. So I'm still like almost, I don't want to, well, parents and caregivers is obviously, because that's who I am. But I also feel like I hope that it's something that'll bring hope to warriors, to bring on people like you and so many of the great warriors doing amazing things, to give parents hope. Because as I mentioned before, when I got the diagnosis, the first thing I thought is a death sentence. Oh my God, how long am I going to have my baby for? So I'm just going to hoard him and just kind of be a helicopter parent all the time, because I don't know how long I'm going to have him for. And then I met people that are like in their 40s and 50s and 60s, that are still thriving and doing well, and others that have not had crisis in many, many years. So it's like, how do we bring, and I say we because it's like now we're partners, but how do we bring these conversations to the forefront to help people realize that, no, it's not just what the doctor tells you. No, it's not just what you read on Google, but there's actually people who are living and thriving with sickle cell that are out there, who are nurses and doctors and pharmacists and marketers and, you know, astronauts or everything. So it's like, I think those are things that are not talked about enough. When you hear sickle cell, oftentimes you hear all the negative, and there's no, I didn't hear any positive until the last year. And I didn't know people that were doing, I just thought, you know, well, he's just going to be in pain and that's going to be his life, but that's not. There's life beyond sickle cell, and you can still, it's not a great place to be, but you know, this is the card you're dealt. So how do we, I want to bring hope. My goal is to bring hope, and that's in the form of resources, education, helping others. You know, community-based organizations are very much needed, but how do we get all of these people together so that we're one collective voice? Because I found in my 6-year journey is that there's so many different silos. Everyone is doing this, everyone's doing that, but it's like, hey. So there's all these little echoes everywhere. How do we get all these voices together so that we can amplify and really make noise?
And
so
no one wants to collaborate. I don't
understand that.
I don't understand that.
I don't understand that.
I don't understand it. It's
so how do we, so that's my number one goal. How do we collaborate? It makes me sad that in 2021, in that clubhouse room, there were still new parents that were just getting a diagnosis, and they still didn't have the information. I'm like, wait, five years ago, I didn't have the information, but that was 5 years ago. 5 years is a long time for things not to progress. So my goal, and I feel like my mission in life right now, and I know that'll change because I hope it will only evolve. But one of my main goals and mission in life is to bring hope to the sickle cell community. And I'm not going to just say just to parents or just to warriors, but to the sickle cell community as a whole. And I would hope to build a community that we can become a collective voice. Again, I bring 15 years of marketing experience. So it's like, how do I teach? If you want to start an organization, hey, and I worked in the nonprofit field. I worked in several different areas in marketing. It's like, you know, community-based organizations. There's so many larger companies that are looking to support these community-based organizations. So it's like teaching that. How do you market yourself? How do you become a storyteller to tell your story? How do you advocate for yourself? But also, again, that community where we learn from each other. And another thing that the fact that people have to create GoFundMe accounts to bury their loved ones.
Bruh, that's so annoying.
Do you know how I don't even know the word. It's
like Hertz Nazaire was like a prolific painter.
This is gonna hurt me because that was one of the things, like, oh my God.
And they had to have a GoFundMe for my brother. It was heart-wrenching.
And I want a fund that I want to support that. If someone can't be buried, guess what? I'll pay for it. If you need to go freeze your eggs or you need to get reproductive help because your systems is so, I'm trying not to be offensive, because that's one of the things like I had to learn, especially like, if you're going to serve people, there's certain things you can't say, but I'm just going to say it. And I'm not trying to be offensive. I'm still learning. But like when your system is all messed up because of the medications that you've been taking, and then you really want to become a parent, but you're not able to, hey, I want to pay for that. Or
that was articulate. There's nothing wrong with how you said that.
But there's just certain things that earlier I was like, ooh, would that be offensive to somebody else? Would that, but
But the thing
like,
is,
you know what, we're going to have candid conversations. Those
let's
who will
be
be
real.
offended will be offended.
Sickle cell is offensive. It jacks up your body and it tears you up. Let's be period point blank.
Yeah.
And so if my story is offending you, or what I've been through is offending you, I'm sorry. Please know that this is what I go through.
What I wanted to call the podcast actually was my truth offense. But I'm like, that's a little too, it could be too much.
No,
I'm like, for something else.
No, your truth
my truth offense. Yes.
And it is. It is what it is.
So that's my goal. Or if someone, and I know it, like more recently, I saw one of the people that we follow, both of their kids have sickle cell, and they're going through, Shakira from We Eat for Life. Both her kids have sickle cell, and I guess they've been having a tougher time lately. So they're trying to conceive to have another child through IVF that could potentially save the life of the other two. It's like, okay, that's something I want to help with. I want to help with everything. I want to be like Captain Saber Warrior.
Right.
I don't know. Generosity and compassion, I feel, are like one of the two gifts that God has innately placed in my heart. And I hope to build a community and raise funds that will specifically benefit those afflicted by sickle cell, whether it's you can't pay for your rent because you were in a hospital all month. Hey, we have an organization that can take care of you. Oh, you need to know how to find other streams of income because your employer just doesn't care about you and your health and is going to kick you to the curb when you're in your most down state. I got a plan to help you out. So a lot of things, like, I'm still kind of sparsing out. Sometimes it feels a little overwhelming.
Yes.
But the day that God gives you the seed, or the day that you plant the seed, is never the day that the harvest comes. It's been a couple of years. There's a lot of things that I'm like, but me, why me? But then it's like, well, why not me? I want to be the change that I want to see in this world. And I am scarily ready to take that plunge.
Yeah.
So long-winded, that was a long-winded to say, I want to bring hope in any and every way that I can, bringing my past experience, knowledge, and resources to help the sickle cell community, be it a warrior or a caregiver. And I'm learning to use caregiver more than parents, because it's not just parents who are taking care of warriors, because a lot of these warriors are also, their parents were warriors and are no longer here.
My poor husband is a caregiver. Amazing.
Caregiver. Oh yeah, you're a very lucky one.
Yeah, there's married women that are caregivers. So we have to include them in the conversation as well.
Absolutely. I want to, for me, it's like, I want to serve everybody, but it's like in marketing specifically, or in certain areas, especially like in social media, niche. Like, shut up with your niche. I just want to help everybody. Okay. I want to be God's feet here on earth for people afflicted by sickle cell. So it's providing hope, because I think hope is one of the areas that when you lack hope, it takes you down a rabbit hole of a mental place. And then we could have another whole podcast about mental health and all of that.
And me hearing you talk it's astounding to me, because you are single-handedly talking about all of the mission of Throughthepain. And what I was trying to do when I first launched not only the podcast, but just launched the shirts, or even the ambassador program, and
Mhm.
I felt like I was one woman trying to do it all, and now we're rebranding and repositioning.
Collaborate. Now you have a partner. Yeah,
Collaborate.
I remember the conversation we had a couple of months back, and you were mentioning, like, oh my God, like, but that's what I want to do too.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is that I knew what God had placed in my heart, go do. So it's like, I've done so much in my professional life, and then I've done so much in my personal life, but it's like, but I don't want to be just about sickle cell, but it's like, sickle cell is my everyday life, but sickle cell is not all of who I am. It's not the totality of Elsa. Sickle cell just happens to be the most painful part of my life that is now turning into the purpose for what I do, and the purpose of how and why I need to use the personal and professional life to move it forward. But in trying to,
I would say it's the thorn in my side.
There you go.
The biblical term.
There you go.
It's the thorn in my flesh that keeps me closer to God. And
Yeah.
It also propels my purpose. So yes, it's the pain, but I've learned my purpose of who I am because of this disease that's in my life.
Yes. And then to see how other people are suffering, that I don't like to see people in pain. So just to know that, that's, so yeah. But in knowing all of this, I thought I was just supposed to come alongside and help everyone do their thing, because I'm a helper. Like, I like to help everybody. But God kept saying no. Every time, like, oh, I wanted to do this. Oh, somebody else is already doing that. Or I want to do a conference for caregiver. Oh, somebody else is already doing that. Okay, maybe it just wasn't supposed to be. Maybe I'm just supposed to help. But it's like, no, I want you to do. And we've had this conversation. There were specific instructions to the point where I was being downright disobedient.
Yes.
If we can talk about it as Christian women, I was being downright disobedient. I didn't think of it as disobedience at that point, but it's like, I was going around ways of doing it, but it's like, that's not what I told you. I'm a little hard-headed, in case you, so yeah. So I want to help other people, but it's like, no, I want you to do it this way. And by doing it this way, you will help other people, but it's not helping other people's stuff be the primary. Helping other people come together is the primary goal that I think. So I want to be God's hands and feet and pocketbook here on earth to the sickle cell community. I have an audacious goal to raise like $1 million. That was like placed in my heart one day. I'm like, but Lord, that's a lot of money. He said, no, it's not in my kingdom. He's like, we serve the God of 1,000 hills, or 1,000,000 hills, a gazillion hills. So yeah, my goal in life is to be God's hands, feet, ears, eyes, heart, and pockets, especially because sickle cell community needs money.
Right.
Money for funding, for education, for the things that you guys need, period. Period. If you don't want to cook a meal and you need someone to come into your house, hey, our organization will fund that. That was a long answer.
That was a long answer, but I'm glad we got into it. But we have to wrap up. This was a long 3-part. This is a 3-part episode, three episodes, all in one.
The beginning of something wonderful.
Yeah.
But you know what, Dima? I know we didn't talk. We didn't practice any of this. So this is like fully candid conversation. So for those who don't know, this interview was supposed to happen a couple of times already.
Oh my gosh.
So just the fact that the devil is a liar.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm not one to like, and part of the other reason that like I kind of been a little trepidatious in like launching my own thing. It's like, I don't like the sound of my voice, and I certainly don't like to be on camera. So this actually was so much better than I thought, because I was like, oh my God, I have to be on camera. I have to hear my voice. It's like, I better get used to it. I better get used to it, because all of the things that make me uncomfortable is exactly what I know I'm supposed to be doing. And I know that this will serve a lot of people. So I thank you for even thinking of me and inviting me on. You're such an amazing warrior, and you have given me so much hope, not just as a warrior, but as a woman, as a mom, to see how your husband cares for you and how you care for your children in the midst of everything. And you're able to be an author, a beauty queen, a CEO of your own organization. Like, you do amazing things. And I know you don't know how amazing you are. So I'm going to sit here and tell you, you are amazing, and you were meant to help so many people. And I cannot wait to see what God is doing in your life and what the future holds for you and your organization, Throughthepain and Unleashing Royalty. Go get her book if you don't have it yet, because that was like one of the best books that I've read in a long time. And she didn't pay me to say this, and I'm not just saying it just to say it. That's the one thing, I don't waste my words. But I thank you for all that you do, all that you are, for sharing your story so openly and candidly. You are the epitome of hope in affliction. Honestly, you really are.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'm gonna try to take the compliment. I'm gonna take it.
And that's the funny, like, we're so similar in so many ways. Just take it, okay? Just take it. Just take it. So I'm excited. Thank you. Thank you. Like, you just broke me out of my shell. My pits are a little wet. Candid conversations, right? Yes. I thank you sincerely, from the bottom of my heart. Like, this is why it didn't happen before, because it needed to happen today.
Yes.
It happened exactly when it was supposed to happen.
Yeah. Because let the listeners know what had happened before. We had funerals that happened that got in the way. We had other technical difficulties and that got in the way. And Tuesday we were supposed to record, and I busted my knee.
And she's still doing this through the pain. So this is like, the title of this podcast couldn't be more perfect for who you are and how you operate. She is literally, it was Tuesday. It was like, what day is it? Like, I have no concept of days. Yeah. So like, you're literally sitting here through the pain, providing hope in affliction.
Yeah. Wow.
Look at that.
How you did the work. How you did that.
I love it. I love it. I'm again excited that we're able to do this. I know this is the first of many, because if nothing else, we're going to take over Massachusetts and then each state thereafter. But not just take over, but hopefully bring on others on the same mission, so that we can be a collective, powerful voice for the community.
All right. Well, I'm down. I'm down if you are. Let's do this.
You already know, Elisha.
All right. Thank you for tuning in to another great podcast of Throughthepain. Please, if you guys want to help our initiatives, or if you want to help Hope and Affliction or Throughthepain, please let us know. Email us, contact us through the show notes. You can click on the links. Help us out, because we want to do more, not only for Hope and Affliction doesn't want to do just for the sickle cell community, but we just want to do more, period.
Absolutely. So leave in the comments, what do you guys want to hear about? Stay tuned. Launch will be before the end of February for sure. But follow us on IG. I'm at @just_Elsa. And Dima's at?
I'm at Dima Hendricks, and
there you go.
I'm also at Throughthepain Podcast. There's so much that's going to be happening, and all the information will be in the show notes. So comment below. And thank you for joining us for
Thank you for listening to us. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yes.
But again, let us know what you guys want to hear from us. let Dima know how awesome she is.
Oh God, no.
Go get her book, Unleashing Royalty. And we hope to I hope to come back and do this soon. You know,
yeah, this
once I
good.
get comfortable and get talking to the right people, especially about this topic, I can go on for days.
There's no shutting this up. There's no shutting this up.
For tools, merchandise, and additional information, log on to our website, www.throughthepain.org. This has been a Public Praise Media production.